Hi, everyone. Thanks all for coming today. My name is Lynn Hashim. I'm the president of Tech Lab, and we are more than happy to have today with us Ziad Chabulsi, head of partner engineering at Facebook, where he will explain to you how to crash your coding interview.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. So first of all, let me thank you for coming. Like, despite when I was a student, if I had to go to an extra class that I didn't have credits for or not getting anything for, I'm not sure I would have done it. So first, thank you for coming. This will be very casual. I'll be taking any questions you might have. The content should be very engaging, even if you don't want to work in coding or as a software engineer or as a developer. It will be quite generic. There's only going to be a few zoom-ins to coding specifically. We're going to go through coding interview questions. We're going to talk about what to put on your CV, what the tech companies typically look like. And I'm going to start by talking a bit about my experience applying. First, let me tell you, it's a huge honor to be here. This is the third time I hold this talk at the AUB on a variant of crushing your coding interview. I'm an AUB graduate myself. I graduated in 2009. It seemed very close 10 years ago. For you guys, it's probably infinity away, but for me, I feel like I'm still an AUB student. So when I graduated, I went on to London to pursue a master's in behavioral economics, nothing to do with engineering per se, but I just wanted something I was passionate about. And the first thing I want to talk about is, clicker's not working. All right, so the first lesson I want you guys to take from this is perseverance. So when I went to London, I had no idea what I wanted to work on. I had been coding all of my life. I started coding very, very early on, just creating apps for myself and selling them on the internet in the end of the 90s. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was applying to investment banking, consulting, and a bunch of jobs. And then Facebook, as an opportunity, came up. In the month of January, Facebook was opening its first presence outside of the United States. So I thought, of course, I'm going to apply. This will be a dream come true. I sent my CV. They read it. They like it. They send me an Arabic test. And I failed the test. I got 60 at Arabic 201A. So Facebook was right that I didn't do my test very well. But I really insisted so much that I wanted just to be given one chance to do coding and to speak with someone that worked at Facebook beyond their standardized test. So the first email I sent, no one replied. Second email, still no reply. By the third email, I sent the first part of my dissertation, which I was writing about Facebook. And this got the eyes of someone in recruiting, and eventually I was allowed to interview and got the job 6 months before graduation, which now, in hindsight, I'm really, really grateful for. But so this is my path. That's how I ended up at Facebook almost 10 years ago. So now let's talk a bit about Facebook specifically. Facebook's mission, new mission, revised 2017, is to give people the power to build community and to bring the world together. Working at Facebook is really exciting. It's a big company. Whenever you're writing code or shipping something, you're doing it for billions and billions of people at best. And if not, even it's going to be like a few hundreds of millions or tens of millions. So the scale of Facebook and the mission, how important it is really exciting. Nowadays, Facebook is a family of apps. It's not only Facebook itself. There's Instagram, there's WhatsApp, Oculus. We're working on AI and a bunch of different disciplines. But Facebook itself, for building community, is really important. So whether Facebook, when it started, was essentially around a community, college, then it evolved a bit more into news, people posting their updates, a lot of videos, and now we're investing a lot in the community aspect of things. On Facebook, there are hundreds of thousands of groups that contain a lot of people that get a lot of value out of them. One of the groups I like to mention, for example, there's a group of 5 million people in Nigeria for single moms. It's a huge deal. So basically, when you're a single mom, you don't know how tough it is, and you want to connect with people around you. There's no community, there's no way you can build this community around you except for a platform like Facebook. So I was told that a lot of the companies come and start talking about the values and tell people go out for drinks after work and stuff like that. I'm just going to focus on 5 key tenets of Facebook that I really, really love and aspire to, and I'm going to be giving a couple of examples and stories about them. So first, on Move Fast. Move Fast is one of the most important things that differentiates from Facebook and other companies. At Facebook, for example, we push code in a very regular manner, as opposed to other companies that go through a very rigorous, long testing process. And this is an intentional thing we do. It comes at a cost. It's, when you move very, very fast, there's bound to be a couple of issues that come up. But it also comes at a great advantage. If you're an engineer and you code a feature and you want to test it in production within a couple of hours to 1% of users, you can do that. And that's extremely powerful when you work in engineering. Another story that I like to tell people is in terms of engineers at Facebook, you have a lot of freedom in what you want to work on. So a couple of years ago, do you guys know in the profile picture overlays on Facebook? So you can put something on top of your profile picture, right? Does anyone use Facebook? Right? I'm not seeing a lot of notes. So effectively, this feature was a month before Pride Month, which is June, a couple of years ago. There were 2 engineers that had just joined the company that thought it would be a cool project to work on that. Within a couple of weeks, just their idea, they managed to ship it, and it affected excuse me, tens of millions of people, because Facebook allows for shipping code fast and moving very fast. So what it translates for engineers is a lot more power in the day-to-day. The second thing on being bold. So being bold means transforming your business and not hesitating to reinvent the business every now and then. I still remember a couple of years ago when Facebook made the move to being a website, to being a mobile app, a lot of people internally did not know how to code mobile apps. And we were transforming Facebook, a website, into primarily a mobile platform, which was a big change to adjust. Also, when Newsfeed was released, people got super angry because it was very different than the core Facebook experience. Same for videos, when we launched videos. So Facebook has to be bold, and big companies have to be bold like this, and it's really part of our DNA to reinvent the business every couple of years to adjust to what consumers want. Focusing on impact, this is one of the most important. In a company like Facebook, when you're touching billions of people, focusing on the right thing makes a lot of difference. So the scale of working on problems is really big. So even if you're building internal tools for Facebook employees, it's already a population of 60 to 70,000 people that you're developing software for. If you're working on Newsfeed or Facebook for Android, immediately jumps to the billions of people. So focusing on the right thing is key, especially that the company did not grow as fast as the number of its users did. Fourth is be open. So at Facebook, we have a really strong open culture internally. This translated, for example, anyone being able to see someone else's code. So if you are an engineer on photos, you're interested to see what's happening on Facebook for iOS, you're able to just go check the repository and see what's going on. It's a bit different in other big tech companies to protect, be more secretive. But Facebook really lives by this being open rules. And the last is building social value. We want our products to be used for good, and we believe that Facebook is primarily and overwhelmingly being used for good. And for us, it's really important to build these services to make a positive impact on society. So just going to show you guys briefly the 10-year innovation roadmap. So we have the ecosystems that we're focusing on the short term, Facebook and Instagram. A couple of products like WhatsApp, Workplace, and Messenger. Workplace is basically Facebook, but for companies. So you have like a private Facebook within Walmart in the US uses this. So there are hundreds of thousands of employees have a Facebook Workplace community where you can create groups, chat with everyone, etc. And the last point, connectivity, AI, and VR and AR. These are the long-term investments that Facebook's making. I personally have worked in a couple of different roles within Facebook. I'm currently working on our connectivity initiative, helping to deploy the internet and to bridge the gap of connectivity in the developing world. Oculus is another really interesting one. We're trying to, we've acquired Oculus, the VR company. Most people would know Oculus, right? So we acquired the company a couple of years ago. We're still having a lot of releases. And VR, as a whole, is an industry that has not gone completely mainstream yet. We really believe that this will make people able to communicate easier, to play with each other, to build community with each other. So we're really investing in this. I had a video I'm going to skip. Just again, on the scale of Facebook, when you join a company like Facebook, you're immediately touching billions of people. There's 30 billions of people uploaded every day, 2.2 billion users on Facebook itself every month, more than 1 billion on Instagram. So just it gives you an idea of the scale of what's going on. Right, so now let's move into the specific part. What does that mean to you? So as I said, this talk is not only relevant for engineering and for software development. These are the orgs and the teams within Facebook that you might be interested in. So on the top part, on the base part, we have sales. So there's thousands of people working in sales in Dublin, London, a few people in Dubai. We have a really big sales org, basically selling, helping our advertisers and pages and publishers to get more reach for their products, reach for their audiences on Facebook's platform. Then you have legal, policy, marketing people, etc. On the engineering side, so we have engineering, infra, security, search. FAIR is the Facebook Artificial Intelligence Research Lab, and AML is applied machine learning. So these are mainly in France. I'm talking about the Europe, Middle East, Africa world. And then there's a big center also in the US, a couple of them actually. So when we talk about, there's not like a single role. A lot of people go to software engineering or sales. There's like a lot of roles. So if you've personally always been fascinated about security, for example, you may want to start in a team that is dedicated to security. I personally started on security at Facebook. Other thing I wanted to talk about, bootcamp. So when you join Facebook, you join with a couple of hundreds of people that are going to work in engineering, and it's a 6 weeks intensive course on how Facebook works from an infrastructure perspective. Where are the objects stored, where databases live, a lot of the frameworks and systems we use on top of databases and all of the systems. So it's basically so that everyone goes out of bootcamp having a good understanding of people, of products across the company, but also to have met people across the company. So if when you graduate bootcamp, you join the search team and your friend joins the photos team, then if you have like an overlap, if you are building how to best search for photos in the search product, you have a contact in this team. So really enables people to be cohesive and for people in the company all to know each other. I get these questions a lot. There's a lot of internship opportunities at Facebook. It's year-round, so it's not only in the summers. I know in engineering you guys do the third year, right? Like an internship. Typically, though, if you're applying for an internship in Facebook and a couple of the big tech companies, you have to start it way in advance. Because of the scale of it, in August and September of 2019, we would start hiring for summer of 2020. So if you're thinking of this summer, probably a bit too late already, unless it's in one of the more specialized role for the graduate community. And yeah, so that's why we need you. Like there's so many of amazing products that get built by people that have just started, either after their undergrad or grad. I've been at Facebook for 9 years. I'm managing about 40 people right now. And for me, knowing that at this point, I've been so immersed into Facebook, whenever someone comes from outside of the company, I really want to hear their opinion. I want to hear their opinion, see their contributions. I want them to have an input into how to do things. And that's where you guys come in. When you join Facebook from the first day, you can be sure to have immense impact and to really move the needle. Right, so now we're going to talk about a few interview prep materials. So the first thing, don't be shy today. Ask a lot of questions. Interrupt me if anything is not clear. I'm actually going to take a moment now. Do you guys have any questions on the first part before we move on the technical bit? No question. Crystal clear. I'm going to stand in awkward silence until someone asks a question. Usually works. Do you guys want to give the mic?
Okay, to apply to an internship in Facebook, I feel like it's super competitive. So to even be considered, you need more than just good grades. So what is any particular projects that would be of interest to them, or any particular languages or stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of the big companies do not look for one specific coding language. So at Facebook, for example, we use primarily Hack, which is a variant of PHP that is strongly typed. But we also use everything else, like Python, C++, Java, everything. For other big tech companies also have their proprietary languages. So I wouldn't focus as much on the language you're doing. I would be familiar with a lot of languages. If you've only been coding for a couple of years, you can say, oh, I would only code in this specific language. Like you need to be flexible. You need to put yourself outside of your comfort zone and be familiar with a bunch of languages. What I would say helps a lot is having a lot of extracurricular projects. So not project that I work on this at university, but if you have the idea of an app, create an app, publish it, try to get users, try to get like the full experience of actually getting something out there, or participating in something that not everyone else in your class has also done. So I would really encourage projects that are not part of the core curriculum. Other questions about the first part? If it's about like coding and interviewing, we'll get to it first then. Right? So how do you prepare? A lot of practice. You guys already know all of the books, all of the websites, what you need to do. But basically, there's like what the process is, all of the material you need to do, and how to communicate in your interview. You need to be somewhere in the middle. Practice really makes perfect. And the only variable, you will not control what is the interview question you get. You will not control who you're interviewing with, how you feel on the day, etc. The only thing you can control is how prepared you come to the interview. How prepared you are mentally from the process perspective and the confidence, but also like really acing these algorithm classes and all of the questions that may come. So really, when you come to the interview, there should not be a question that when you're reading it, you're feeling insecure or feeling worried. You need to be very systematic in the way you're approaching these questions. So the goal is basically to maximize your odds through practicing about potentially landing where you want to land. So what do interviewers look for in the interview? First, how you think and tackle the problems. Second, how you consider the actual engineering trade-offs. So one of the things I always encounter is someone answering with what we call like the naive solution, which is basically something to the, O to the n square, for example, which is, as you know, like very bad from a time perspective. So you basically want to try to, if you're coming up with the first solution, and you know it's not the optimal one, it's fine to just say, look, I'm going to do it this way. I know that it's not good from a time complexity perspective, but I'm going to come up with the best version later. So this gives early signal to your interviewer that you know about time complexity, about memory complexity. It's something you're taking into account. And it's something that you're just starting on the problem before you can give like the best solution you can come up with. The third one is how to communicate in English about the technical problems. There's some lingo and the common knowledge in the technical side of engineering. These are where you're going to be able to communicate with your interviewer. So if you talk about DPS, like a lot of the acronyms, you have to know them for sure. But it just helps a lot more when you're coming from a middle ground and you're speaking the same language from a technical perspective. But the last one is also just on the limits that you know. So for example, if someone is asking you to implement a depth first search algorithm and you're not entirely sure, you can say, look, I'm not sure how to do it, but let's work on it together. So don't feel bad if you don't get all the answer right. And especially in the interview process, try to always be composed and try to do your best. Because if you start like panicking and telling them, oh my God, I'm doing so bad, etc., it's not going to help you in any case. Right, so what is covered? A lot of time people think it's like puzzles. It's not like the consulting question where they're just asking you, how many elephants you fit in a car and random stuff like these. They're actually like hard, tangible engineering problems that you're going to use on a daily basis. So data structures are a must. You must know all of data structures. You must know what's the advantage of using a data structure as opposed to the other. And you must be able to talk about the solutions you're implementing. You need to constrain the problem space a bit more. You need to slice and dice the problem in the vocabulary that everyone working on computer science and engineering is able to talk about. Course that helped, I think algorithm, definitely. There's not enough algorithm you could do to be perfectly comfortable. And the difference is that you don't have Stack Overflow to help you in the interview. You're really relying on yourself. So you need to be able to get familiar with these concepts. So the goals of a coding interview, as I said, like the data structure algorithm, you want to implement. You're not memorizing them and just saying them out loud. You want to be able to implement it in any language. It can be pseudocode. It doesn't need to be like the actual language. It's just talking about the data structure and the problem itself. As I said, also discuss complexity, space and time, the trade-off between both, etc. And the common library function are completely fair game. So if you're using a specific language and you want to use some common library function, not like some specific frameworks function, completely forget. If you want to use something for sorting, instead of implementing your sorting function, completely forget. Also, if you have, there's like not a lot of questions about specific concepts, unless you're telling your interviewer, I'm a world expert about DNS and TCP. You're not going to get like something very, very narrow within that field. You're always going to get something that is a bit on the surface and not drilling down into one specific concept. So what is the format of a coding interview? As an introduction, you want to like learn about your interviewer and the person you're interviewing and sharing your past experiences. A couple of minutes, 5-10 minutes, just to get an understanding of what you've done in the past and how this fits in the context of Facebook. On the coding, a lot of the time is spent answering the coding questions. If the interviewer is stopping you in the middle of the question, don't feel that it's wrong. Again, as I said, when I ask someone, by the way, I've done over 400 interviews at Facebook to people who are applying to engineering roles. So with time, I've seen like every combination there can be. And I don't hesitate to interrupt someone if I'm not getting the signal I'm looking for. For example, if you're implementing a brute force solution to an algorithm, it's completely fine for me to interrupt and telling you, look, like this needs to accommodate an array of 10,000 elements, so your O to the n square is not going to cut it. So like move on, I know you can do this, move on to something else. So don't take it as negative signal if someone is interrupting you in the interview and moving you on to something else. There can always be follow-up examples, follow-up questions about an answer you've given. So if you implement an algorithm with X many variables, and you've done it in a very quick time, especially, it's very common for someone to like add a twist to the problem and see if you can still do it. This will give even stronger context into your performance. The fourth point, be prepared to test your code. You need to be able to go through the code with your example. So if sometimes you're coding on a whiteboard, sometimes you're coding on a computer. In either case, is testing your code by passing variables, even if it's just in your mind, to validate whether what you're doing makes sense. All right, I spoke a lot. Any question before we move on? No? All right. Cool. So again, steps to a successful interview for you as an interviewee. First thing, repeat the question back to your interviewer. You want to understand and make sure that your interpretation of the question is what the person is expecting. You want to ask questions about edge cases. So, should I handle null variable? By array of integers, do you just need positive integers or negative integers as well? So ask a lot about these edge cases because they will show your interviewer that you've thought about the problem and the implications. A third point, take your time to think about the solution. Like you don't have to fill in the blank and talk all the time. If you take a couple of minutes to take the notes and wrap your head around the question, completely fine. Fourth point, start coding, but explain your thought process. If you're coding and coming up with a solution, but you can't talk about it, it's not as good than if you can actually go through every step, explain what you're doing, explain the pitfalls of every solution. And the fifth point, running test cases. Continue talking out loud, saying, I'm passing this array, this integer, that's where it's going, that's how I get to the answer. And iterate. Once you finish it, say, okay, I've done the first step. How can I make it better? How can I make it clearer? How can I change the variable names to something that is clear for the engineer that's going to come after me? And how can I handle runtime and memory better? All right, now the fun part. Just for my understanding, how many people have code in this room? The majority-ish. Cool. For those who don't, this will still be, hopefully, quite interesting. So, all right, this could be a question, for example. Given two strings, determining if the strings are anagrams. So you want to ask, just so I'm understanding what your question is, you want to write an algorithm to determine if two strings have the same vectors. Okay, so just translating the question, making it into plain English to make sure that you've understood the question properly. Then when I said ask questions, for example, you're going to ask, which language are the strings? If you guys have coded in Arabic, you know the beauty of handling anything that is UTF-8 and all of this crazy stuff. So it's a fair question. What language are the strings? What character set code? How much memory can I use? Are all the characters letters, or do I have numbers? How does case play a role, uppercase, lowercase? So there's so many of these edge cases, and the more you ask them, and the more you think about them, it will help you in your implementation, and it will also give strong signal to your interviewer that you're thinking of how to write the best code. All right, so I want you guys to just think of what the solution to this problem is in your head. Yeah. I see a lot of numbers in the air. Great. So that's one possible solution, right? So our anagrams, you sort the two strings. You iterate on the number of characters that are found in the length of the string number 1. If at no point, if at no point they are the same, you just return false. Otherwise, return true. What's the pitfall? Does anyone want to take a guess? Please.
It's like we may have 2 letters in one string, and then the next one will be the same, but we'll miss that. I mean, like, if you have AAB and you have AB, you'll return false, whereas it's true.
You're sorting first, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good one. For example, in the string number 1, draw and word, the algorithm works in that case. The bug is not exposed. The bug will come on later. Like, for example, face and faces. Okay? The algorithm will actually, in this case, we get a false positive. Because when you sort face, it gives you ACEF. When you sort faces, it gives you ACEFS. But effectively, the algorithm returns true because the first 4 characters of both of strings are the same. So effectively, you didn't take into account the length. And again, the bug here is that in the 4i in range length of string 1, you're only taking string 1, basically. Another case to write it, we fixed the algorithm by actually returning false in the case that the 2 strings are not of the equal length. So that's like one way to write it. Sorry if I didn't understand your question. I think you were right in what you said. I don't think I understood what you said. So that's just one way. Any question? Yeah.
It's actually here because we are using Python and this language, we would have this pitfall. But if we were
yes, another language
that checks the last
correct.
character, it wouldn't be a problem.
Correct. Yeah, it depends on language that it's being used. Correct. Cool. So one thing to remember, I'm insisting on this a lot because this is like one of the things that comes up the most. Being able to write an algorithm that is very fast is tough. Being able to just come up with an algorithm, quite easy. So the code is only as fast as its simplest step. So we're bound in that case by the sorting, right? Because first we're sorting both of the strings. And then we're iterating, which is O of the n. But effectively, the time complexity is, it could be either depending on the sorting methods. I was testing you guys. Great. Second question we're just going to go through. Finding the first non-repeating character in a string. Again, how do you explain it in longer English? Effectively, you want to iterate on each point. So you want to count every occurrence of a letter in a string, pump up the counter, etc. So for example, if the string is ABDCAC, the answer would be B because it's the first character that appears only once in the string. So again, things to consider: type of character set. What if the toString has no repeating characters? What do you do? What if the string is empty? Space considerations you're bound by, and do you treat upper and lower case differently? So there's a lot more. This is just to give you an example. By the way, if you guys are getting tired to record, we're going to post this later and send it to everybody. There's someone up there recording it for us. Right, so the general approach here is the following. You create an array of size 256 because it's all possible ACCII characters. You want to bump up the counter, so iterate on every character in the string, bump up the counter every time. The first time you create your tracking array, and then in the character, you go over every element in your array. If the value is 1, then you're good. If there's no 1, you will always return none or false. But if the count is 1 at one point, it will be true. These are easy problems. You're very likely to get them as a first question if you're interviewing for internships. I mean, we don't use these in interviewing. That would be very easy. But similar problems, you're very likely to get them if you apply for fresh grad position or for an internship as a first question. Like these, typically, getting them done in 10, 15 minutes, and then moving on to a more complicated question. Go ahead.
Ask, like you said, there are for sorting, for example, there are a ton of libraries in all languages that can do that automatically.
Yeah.
But would something like this, for example, like to implement an algorithm still be required of us? Like, for example, we want algorithms to implement image sort.
Yeah, that could be. This could be an interview question. Sometimes, yeah. Even for the common library, functions like sorting, which has been done by amazing computer scientists in the past, just to make sure that you understand how they're being done. It's a fair interview question. It's not very common, but it's very good. All right, a couple of more slides, and then we can move to questions. So again, for this specifically, iterating once to create the tracking array, O of n, and iterating again on each bucket against the input string, O of n. Both run in constant time, obviously, so our total time is O of n. So this is like a good, fast solution you don't need to iterate on. So post-interview, it's good to have a couple of questions for your interviewer. I got a lot of questions when I interviewed people across the years. The one that resonate the most are when someone is trying to ask me about my experience to infer whether the job or the culture is right for them. So for example, you can, but I wouldn't recommend necessarily talking about what's happening in the news for Facebook, because this is more like gossipy, a swelling photo conversation, but more something that affects you. What is the culture like at Facebook? What was the first thing you shipped? Something like this, basically, to get to know your interviewer a bit better and infer and get to know something that would be relevant potentially in your career at Facebook. So, but focus on what matters to you the most. If it's work-life balance, if it's some of the perks, etc. Anything is free, is fair game. And also feel free to contact your recruiter with follow-up questions. Right, so just going to summarize the takeaways. Think out loud when you're working through the problem. Say it out loud. If you just start coding, the person is not in your brain. They don't know how your chain of thought is going. So, think out loud. Ask a lot of questions about the problem. A lot. There's literally not enough questions you can ask. Write good code, best code you can, documents you can put, some inline documentation, have clear variable names, don't call everything XYZ, etc. Just make it basically robust and a pleasure to look at. Test your code, go over it, iterate, have a couple of different edge cases that you are passing to your code to make sure that your code works, and then you can iterate on the solution if you don't feel that you're there. And then just be yourself, have fun, enjoy it. We're good at time. So what does the interview process look like from A to Z? So the step one is to submit your resume on facebook.com/career. We have a lot of AUB grads at Facebook, really a lot. The reason I'm doing this talk this week is because I think you can be the next person. And I want you guys to be the next person. We've recruited a lot from AUB, and I really want us to recruit more going forward. You have just as good chances as anyone, as long as you come prepared to the interview. Every year we hire a lot of new graduates. The only thing I would say here is submit your resume. If you're looking to join Facebook next summer for an internship or September 2020, and you're applying as a fresh graduate, apply around August or September, because for our next intake of fresh grads, it's done for already. As I said, your resume will be reviewed. If selected, you will be contacted for an interview. There will be an initial set of phone interview or Skype interview, but you should prepare. You will get a very basic coding question at this one. If you're successful, step 4, which is a lot of tech interviews, behavioral questions, and technical questions. If you're a graduate, not an intern, you will be flown in. If it's for internship, it will be done remotely. If, on the off chance there are graduates in the room, when you have a couple of years of experience and you're applying, beyond coding questions, you also do architecture type of questions. So being asked how to implement a search infrastructure from databases, redundancy, load balancing, etc. So these type of questions. For fresh grads, usually you don't get these questions. What should you include in the CV? Definitely one page. As much as you have done in your great career so far, but you haven't done enough for it to require more than one page. So one page only, putting your name, contact info, studies, but also really emphasize experiences. If you built an app that got 1,000 downloads, something that went viral, etc., do include it. If you can put a link for it, also do it. These are the kind of edge case stuff that's already exciting. Personally, as I said, when I applied, I had written a lot of apps. I had launched a company publishing software for Palm OS and Pocket PC. I don't know if you guys know what these are. End of 90s and early 2000s, ancient devices that aren't there yet. And I really think that this is what got me, definitely not my GPA, that got me interviews at Facebook. It's really just the extracurricular stuff. Then also awards. They matter. If you're participating in online competitions, there's plenty of them. I encourage you to, top coders, you guys know them. Or if you want like a local programming contest, also put it there. This is the exact same slide as before. How can I get prepared? Just a summary. Data structures, array, lists, maps, graphs, trees, sorting, to answer your question, searching. You can check everything on GitHub, on the Code Lab of Facebook. There's hundreds of resources out there. Cracking the coding interview. You guys know all of the books you should read. Practice in pair or in groups. You should also try to interview each others or apply to a lot of companies just to go through the process. The first few interviews will not be easy. Even if you're prepared, you need to beta test it a bit. It's like learning how to drive. How comfortable are you the first day you drive versus after a couple of years? So do a lot of mock interviewing or interviewing at real companies before going for your big shots. And again, work on a lot of papers if you're interested in the field of research. But yeah, this much is working on the whiteboard, paper, laptop. Coding on a whiteboard is very uncomfortable. A lot of companies make you go through writing, for, etc. It's confusing, especially the first time. So really practice it. Great. So in Europe, Middle East, Africa, we have a lot of graduate and intern opportunities, as I said before. There's a lot for PhDs. I don't believe AUB doesn't have engineering PhD, right? PhD? Amazing. So we have a lot of, we take a lot of PhD and research on a constant basis. So what I said before about the 2020 intake does not apply in your case, but these are all the teams we have. So in infrastructure, enterprise, and security, production engineering, which is how to maintain server databases, data centers. Facebook has a lot of those. Network engineering, very, very sophisticated network layer infrastructure. Production, we call release engineering, how to get the code out there on www and FP4A on iOS, and the data science field. If you guys are interested in data science, also a huge thing. Software engineering on the right side. So there's generalist software engineering. When you join bootcamp, you pick your team as part of bootcamp, and then we have people specialize in front-end engineering that apply as front-end engineers and would get more React.js, JavaScript, this type of questions. Thank you, guys. Now is question time. Thanks. You want to pass the mics? All right, you, then you, then you. No, the rest.
This is a bit of a general question. Out of the what was it, 400 interviews you've done? What was the apparent acceptance rate?
Can I? Oh, good question. In the single-digit percentage.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I am known as a ferocious interviewer. Sadly, when people join, they tell.
Hi.
Hey.
Thanks for the presentation. I have two parts question. The first one is, if we apply, is there any possibility that we will not get any response from Facebook? And the other part is, how long should we wait if Facebook should reply to each application?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, if are you talking about the general software engineering pool?
Yeah, let's say.
Yeah. So you will definitely get an answer.
Even if it is like a rejection, I mean.
Yeah, within like a couple of weeks, I would say.
Couple of weeks.
The response, we will respond to everybody. But again, as I said, I really recommend to time it properly. So if you do not have prior work experience and you're applying, please wait for August and September to apply. And our recruiting team, so we have university recruiting that looks out for university graduates specifically, and like they will know what AUB is, and it will be looked at.
About the AI residency program, the
Yeah.
1-year research program, do you have an idea how long should it take for Facebook to reply?
I don't know. I mean, I can help you with your case specifically if you want. It depends. We can,
Okay, thank you.
It's typically a couple of weeks.
So how long or how likely is it for a person who got into an internship to be employed at Facebook?
That's a great question. So at the end of someone's internship, there's a committee that discusses the performance, in the journey and whether this person will be offered on the spot a job for next year. So for internships that are in the first or second year, computer science is different outside of Lebanon. You have people apply for first year internship, second year internship, and then a full-time job. But you can get an offer to come back the last day of your internship. You can get an offer for an internship next year, and also a job interview for the year after. The likelihood, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's performance-based.
Another question. If we apply and we get rejected, is it going to affect our next application?
No, you can apply every 6 months. It will not affect it.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Can you just introduce yourself and what you do? So
Okay, my name is Ala Marouf. I'm ECE student majoring in machine learning mostly.
Nice.
Thank you. So I wanted to ask you, if you graduate, is it better to go for an internship or you directly apply for a job?
If you graduate, no, you can apply directly for a job. Internship is typically for people that are currently at university.
Okay.
Or, immediate graduates, but apply, it would be the same, basically. So to apply for the internship, the process is a bit different. But when you get an internship, you still need to be converted to FTE, full-time employee. If you apply for a full-time job, you will go through a more rigorous interviewing process, and then straight to FTE. I would recommend to the full-time employee.
Directly.
Yeah.
And the interviews, the first one is over Skype and then you go on site?
Yeah, depending on the success of the first, the screening interview. Yeah.
Last question.
Yes?
Does it differ for graduates than undergrads, like if you have a master's?
It does, especially if you have work experience before. So you're not counted. If you have 2-year work experience and a master's, you can apply anytime in any case, but you go through a different process, basically, if you have a master's and work experience before. It's a differentiation between fresh graduates that it's like the first time in a company and doing coding for a living, as opposed to typically master's students that have already gone through work for the master's.
But what if you're a master's with no work
Straight after,
experience?
yeah, it's still slightly different process.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Amar Khudar. I'm a first-year CSE major. My question is...
what is CSE? This was
it's a new thing, computer science and engineering. It already
Nice.
exists, guys. What does an intern at Facebook actually do? Does he get to work on the products directly?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as an intern, you join a team based on your interests and skill set and the need. And you will be interning on one specific project. So my team, for example, gets interns to work on one specific problem that we set out for them for the 2-3 months. Typically, you get like an objective, then a couple of stretch goals. Like if you finish, some people finish their objective in 3-4 weeks. It's meant to be a 3-month thing. If you finish it, then you have like how to make it bigger and scale it, deploy it, etc. So you work on real, actual problems. Where I mean, sometimes you can go home and say, "Mom, look, that's my button." But sometimes it's going to be like internal or infrastructure based, and you won't basically. But you will work on impactful stuff for sure.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
I would like to know the number of questions.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Lina Basi. I'm a computer science student.
Which year?
First year. I would like to know the number of questions when you apply to an internship.
So there's typically the first screening interview, and then like interview with 2 or 3 engineers. In every interview, it can be seen as one question, but with the follow-up questions, it ends up being something more sizable. But total is going to be like 3, 4, 5 questions.
Also, one more question. Basically, we know like a couple of programming languages. When you apply to the internship, we're going to be asked based on the programming languages we know.
Typically you're not asked about one. It's never going to be like, tell me 50 functions in Fortran. Like it's going to be something like, do this problem. You can pick any language. When I'm interviewing people, they can use any language they want. That's the common. Unless, like, if you're trying to do UI with PHP, it doesn't really make sense. So, like, it's like it needs to be the logical language for what you're doing. But what I was saying before is true. Like, you can also do pseudocode. So, for example, if you're not sure how to do one thing, you can say, okay, I'm imagining a function that takes this as an input, does this as an output, and then I will continue with like real code. So you can mix and match if you don't remember the specific function.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's one at the back.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Mario Dumet. I'm in CCE second year. My question is, say we have a problem that cannot be solved in C++ because it's a function with a variable number of arguments, and using Python would have solved it quickly. And maybe we're not as fluent in Python, say, or any language. What should we do in that case?
In the interview, you mean?
Yeah.
That's why, like, I think it's good to have a couple of the different programs, at least at an understanding level, based on what each program is strong for. If you only pick, as I said before, like when you're at university or just graduated, like you can't say, I will only ever do this program. So I think learning a couple really well is worthwhile. Now, if you have Ruby and not Python, or Python and Ruby, it's okay. But at least picking like out of every language in what it's good for, I think that would be your best bet. There was one at the front. Am I missing anyone else wants to add a question? It's not at the front for now. Can I just say I'm really glad when I was at AUB, the amount of females in engineering was like inexistent. And I'm really, really impressed and amazed. And to be honest, it's not the case in a lot of countries. So really, kudos to you. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Cedric. I'm a second-year ECE student. So my question is, does the passport that you have affect your chances of getting in? For example, if you're applying to the States or something, and you're not an American citizen.
So I'm not going to give you immigration advice, but the United States of America, as of late, for immigration is go through a process which is called H-1B. Like you need a visa. It's a lottery based. We cannot give H-1Bs to everyone we want to give an H-1B for. So let's say if we send out 10,000 applications, there will only be a smaller number accepted, as opposed to in our non-United States offices, where this restriction doesn't apply. Definitely, if you apply with any passport, it's not going to play against you in any way. On the contrary, we really value diversity. But for tangible reasons, it just might be the case that you will not be able to get, like you get your offer, you sign a contract, you just cannot start because you cannot physically get into the country. And in that case, it depends. Like sometimes your acceptance is deferred for a year. Sometimes you're offered a role in a different Facebook office that also has engineering. Couple more. Go for it.
My name is Noor Hashim. I'm a second-year student majoring in industrial engineering. In the coding part, does it matter how much we're concise in the codes? Like if you solve the problem directly or we circumvent a bit?
It matters to write clear code. Concise would not necessarily, like if it's clear and only makes sense, sorry, if it's concise and only makes sense to you, not necessarily the best. I think best thing is to write clear code that is good from a technical perspective. So time and memory complexity matter a lot than, like no one's going to look at the line count. On the contrary, like if it's 20 lines clear and you could do it in 10 lines, 20 lines clear is better. Should this be the last? Who else wants to ask a question? There's two there. Oh, sorry.
In terms of what we put in our CV when we apply, for example, online coding competitions, like for example, now there's the Google Code Jam going on. So if, say, we don't get like the final round or before final round, is it even worth it to just mention that we participated?
Of course, it's an achievement in itself. So, I mean, if you scored in the, bottom 5%, I wouldn't necessarily put it, but yeah, if you're not like the 0.1%, and you're top 10%, definitely put it down.
Okay.
Was this a humble brag? Which percentage were you?
I'm not
my name is Maria Khalid. I'm a second-year CCE student. So my question was, do you actually focus more on the logic part more than the syntax part when we code? So if, for example, the logic is correct, but we have like a syntax error, so do you focus on that?
No, it's usually a lot better to have the right logic, the right algorithm, etc. Small syntactical mistakes, it's not the number one. It's better if it's correct, definitely, but I wouldn't be like a red flag. I'll take one more after him, so who wants? Nobody?
Hi, I'm Jad Jamil. I'm a chemical engineering graduate. I want to ask, if I learn to code on my own and build apps, and would Facebook still consider an application?
So,
based on my background.
Yeah, we have a lot of people within engineering. I want to say some of the best people that don't have an engineering degree. That was a joke because I'm part of it. But no, we definitely, there's a lot of people. There's people that did medical degrees that then want to be engineers. There are people that work in finance that can code really well. So it wouldn't play against you. The bar is the same. Like you could have done a degree, no degree, PhD in computer engineering. You need to meet the bar, basically. I mean, but to get through the first stage of interview, if you've never studied engineering, you need to be able to show why, how to make it through even the first stage, basically. But it wouldn't. I know a lot of, people within Facebook and all of the companies that do not have a degree at all and no degree. All right, one more, guys, or should we wrap up? Cool. Thank you very much.